Some lead from the front, while others choose to lead from behind. In the complex and layered world of business environment, one of the most effective leadership approaches is leading from the back, empowering others, encouraging collaboration, and guiding teams towards transformative results. At IRIM, we believe in promoting and nurturing leadership that goes beyond just managing day-to-day operations or solving production line problems. We advocate for a deeper perspective, one that inspires organizations to think like leaders, embrace change, and shape a purposeful life. Future. That's why today's topic, Leading Transformation, Stories, Lessons, and the Future of Manufacturing, resonates so powerfully. It reflects not only the journey of transformation within manufacturing, but also the leadership philosophy described in the book, Leading from the Back and Achieving the Impossible. A powerful narrative about enabling others, building trust, and making bold decisions quietly but effectively. We are honored to have with us our special guest, former Vice Chairman and Managing Director of Tata Motors. He was instrumental in creating the Tata Ace, a category-defining product in the light commercial vehicle segment, and the iconic Tata Nano. As a distinguished professor at IIT Kharagpur and an industrial professor at the University of Warwick, he now mentors the next generation of leaders. To take this engaging conversation forward, he will be joined by Mr. Rajesh Srivastava, a thought leader, educator, and best-selling author. He will guide us through this fireside chat and help us uncover the stories, lessons, and vision that continue to define leadership transformation in manufacturing. So without further ado, please join me in welcoming first Mr. Ravi Kant and Mr. Rajesh Srivastava to the stage for an enlightening fireside chat on leading transformation, stories, lessons, and the future of manufacturing. Welcome, gentlemen.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. A pleasure and honor to have you back and to have your attention. Before we get into a conversation with a legend sitting right next to me, I want to narrate a small story. Let me ask you, when you were coming from your home or your office and you were coming here, let's say a day back or something, and I asked you how many cars, red cars, did you notice? How many red cars did you notice? What would be your answer? I don't know. But suppose I had told you, or Anand had sent you a message that when you are coming and you'll be wearing Google glasses, when you're coming from home to here, notice red cars. And for every red car that you notice, I will give you 10,000 rupees. Then what would happen? What would happen? Would you notice the red car? What is the lesson here? In the first case, just because you did not notice the red car, that does not mean that red car did not exist. It still existed, but you did not notice it. But when I made you conscious that you will be rewarded for noticing the red car, you started noticing it. What is the lesson for us? The lesson for us is this, that red car is a metaphor for opportunities. Today, that red car is sitting right here in this room. And when I say that red car is sitting here, that opportunity is sitting here, is I want you to start noticing, focusing, hearing, actively hearing this conversation. Because Mr. Ravi Kant, with the kind of background that he comes, he has created products that touch us. He, by definition, is not a person who will give you a prescription. He will not tell you do these 5 things. But what he will give you is a perspective. And from that perspective, you have to write your own personalized prescription that you should use in your working life, so that you too, when you reach his age, you will be sitting here and the world will narrating your stories to the next generation. So please look upon this conversation as an opportunity to learn from Mr. Ravi Kant and his experience, and he will give you perspective. Now with that, sir, it's an honor to have a conversation with you. We will start this conversation talking about leadership. What I have noticed and read, that for a long, long, long time, the most prevalent style of leadership is the command control, which has been inspired by the military. It has been an age-old style of leadership and the most popular. Now we are in Industry 4.0, the times that we live in. Is this command and control style of leadership still relevant, or do you think there is likely to be some change?
Thanks, Rajesh, for this question. Yes, you are absolutely right that corporates, we may not kind of recollect. They are only about 200, 250 years old. We think they have been there forever, but that's not the case. Corporates came into being after Industrial Revolution. After the 17th century steam engines, 18th century electricity, that's when things became necessary because it gave scale. And what Industrial Revolution did was to separate out the place of production from place of consumption. Earlier, when people used to make things, they used to distribute close by. But Industrial Revolution gave you the opportunity to make at one place so much and then distribute it, reach out to those places in a short period of time. And therefore, the whole thing changed dramatically, which required, therefore, establishment of large organizations, which requires structure. That's when really the structure, formal structure came into being. So when it was happening at that point in time, so people must have been thinking, what kind of structure we should be going in for? And because it all happened in Europe and the UK, there were two kinds of organizations in front of them. One was the Catholic Church, and the other was the military. And for obvious reasons, they chose the military. The military was, as you know, leading from the front because there's one guy who's showing his prowess to everybody and the whole troop is. So his intelligence, his this thing, and everything was leading from the front, right from, say, Alexander the Great downwards, 2,500 years ago. But over a period of time, that was the context. So what was the context at that point in time? Say, if you go to Alexander the Great. He's called great because he never lost a battle. For 10 years, he became king at the age of 20, conquered, created the largest transcontinental empire at the age of 30. So what did he have at that point in time? The context was they had swords, they had javelins, and they had horses. In that context, it was necessary for people to lead from the front because you had to show to the troops how clever you are, how powerful you are. And Alexander had the fortune of having been trained and educated by none other than Aristotle, as you know. And of course, military prowess and all that. So why I'm saying this? Because the first military history, written military history, comes from that period. And working backwards, Roman Empire and everybody else have been following this leading from the front. And when corporates came into being, they found this works very well. Because everything is predefined, layers are predefined, job is predefined, you know who you're reporting to, who's reporting to you, who are your sideways, and things like that. It worked very well till, I would say, the advent of 21st century. Now, even in military, as you'll see and witness now in last, I would say, year and a half, the whole character of leadership in military has undergone change. The person who's waging the war like Alexander, is not there in the front. You see Ukraine war, you are seeing the Gaza war now happening, the Iran war happening, some other war. The guys are sitting somewhere in Moscow, Kyiv, or Brussels, or Washington, D.C., and things like that. So the character of leading from the front has already changed in military. But corporates somehow have been carrying on because that is the predominant role. And because especially after World War I and II, US became the predominant power. They honed in this thing of leading from the front. And therefore you find that whether it's the education, MBA classes, or in publicity and everywhere, it is one man. The whole story is focused on one man. As if he's the God, as if he's doing everything. And I'm sure in this gathering of people here who have been in organization, we know it's not true. We know it's not true. But that's the way it has been. To have somebody and imbue everything to that somebody. And therefore, it's a kind of over-glorification of leadership. But times have dramatically changed now, especially in 21st century. It was all right, it worked very well, because things were more predictable, things were going like this, and therefore you could manage it. So what's changed in 21st century? I would pick out three things. Number one is, there's a lot of unpredictability, uncertainty, natural, man-made. Long term, you've heard of black swans. People would have heard of black swans. You've not heard of gray rhinos. Black swan is a thing which exists, but you don't know it exists. Gray rhino is a thing which exists, and you know it exists. It's coming to you, but you are not doing anything about it. And therefore, one day it hits you. So many of the trends are like this. You don't acknowledge them. And in this uncertainty, and the thing is this, they are not coming one, and next decade there's another one, third decade, because they are all coming almost bunched together. One after another, one after another, one after another, and simultaneously. So it's become impossible for this kind of uncertainty, for a rigid, pyramidal, hierarchical organization, which most of you face in your lives. They are now untenable. You can understand. If something is shaking you up, you can't have a rigid hierarchical structure. And therefore, you need to have more flexible, more adaptable, more kind of anticipatory kind of organization. So, because you are coming from manufacturing, it is very important. Because manufacturing across the world is very hierarchical. And I think you should look at that very seriously. What can be done? How we can change it? Number two is, in 21st century especially, there is explosion of information. Information has always been increasing, but the kind of increase which is there, earlier it was increasing like this, now it is increasing like this. So there's a professor of MIT, who is also senior advisor to Google. He said a few years ago that the rate of change is doubling every decade. So what does it mean? It means that a century of progress can be condensed in a month. A century of progress can be condensed in a month at today's rate of progress. That was several years ago before ChatGPT and all. And you can understand, therefore, in this kind of scenario, it is impossible to have one person command control, the guy kind of a demigod, understanding everything, taking decisions. No. You got to have distributed leadership. You got to have people, tentacles in many places, get information, and then take a more collective leadership decisions. If you don't do that, you'll be behind the curve. And third thing, even more important, is that today's generation, maybe your sons or some if you're older, grandchildren, if you ask them whether they would work in a command and control type of environment with one guy at the top, the answer will be no. And therefore, we need to think very seriously that leading from the front type of this thing, which comes easily, which we have been following for decades, we need to have a relook at it. And therefore, what is it we need to do?
Thank you, sir. And for all of us sitting here, we need to just do a little bit of introspection. As sir mentioned that we come from a manufacturing background where it's a very rigid hierarchy-driven organization, and many of you would be actually like an ATM machine. Your colleagues will be coming with a problem and you would be giving them a solution. This conversation or the insight that sir has provided, I think I would just request you to rethink in the current way in which you are leading from the front. Do you have a rigid organization which you actually very strictly implement? Is that the call of the day? And number three, as you are going to rise up, there will be people from Gen Z, the children that we have in our family, they will be joining the workforce. Would they like this command and control? So all in all, the key lesson is that if we continue to lead from the front, probably in today's time, when there is so much of unpredictability, there is so much of knowledge there's so much of knowledge which is doubling almost every day today. And the third thing is that the children that who will join the workforce in the next decade, they may not like this command and control or leading from the front, and we will be at the top. So you need to reflect on all this. Sir, coming back, now I would just ask Mr. Ravi Kant, sir, that he has mentioned that leading from the front may not be the recipe for success today. And therefore, what is the recipe for success, right? And have you in any way documented this new recipe, sir?
Yeah, so for want of better words, I'm calling it leading from the back. And 4 years ago, somebody told me that, why did you put it all together, what you have learned? And also gave me the headline, and the headline said, leading from the back. It's not my line. Somebody from advertising world told me it's leading from the back. What you do is leading from the back. And then I deconstructed all that and put it all together in a very readable format in the book, which is there. It's a story. It's not a management jargon. It's not what you should do or not do. But it is a story of a manager. And very readable, and you can, as you see, it is co-authored. I'm not the author, only author, so there are two Americans with me. And so in that, it has been explained what it means. So it is very simplicity. What it contains is three things. How should I be? How should I be? Because the change starts from you. How should I be? How should I deal with the team? Because without team, you can't do anything. In fact, the very crux of leading from the back is creating powerful teams. And third is, those powerful teams are created to do impossible tasks. So that is the task. Third is task. So first is I, second is team, third is task. And each has got three simple parameters, if I may say so, or three facets. How should I be? Have an open mind. They may sound very simple or very sometimes childish, but having an open mind is very tough. And the more successful you become, the more close-minded you become. And you begin to think, no, I know this best. I know this best. It's like the 50 years ago when you had the press shop manager who would remove everybody from the scene and change the die because nobody should know how to change a die in the press. That was the time. So we need to now think very, very differently. So have an open mind. Look at what advances are happening and things to that. Take ownership. Whatever level you are, it doesn't matter. You may not be financial owner, but you should assume as if it's you own the job. And third is be detached. While you're owning it, be detached. Have a distant kind of look to it. Second is on how to build a great team. That's, as I said, is the heart of the whole thing. Trust, collaborate, and leverage strengths, because everybody in an organization has got strengths. So to identify and leverage it is one of the most fundamental things for success. And third part is on tasks. Look at something, opportunities in a big way. Look outside in, instead of, we normally do inside out. Acha, itna hua, okay, can we do something more? Can I do 2% more? My thinking is a little different. Is once you've set a target, then look outside in and be tough softly. Leading from the back doesn't mean that you have either abdicated your responsibility, nor that you become soft, no. As far as work is concerned, as far as target is concerned, as far as achievement is concerned, you are very, very tough. But as far as dealing with people is concerned, you treat them in a human manner and you treat them in a soft manner. So that's what, in a very 2-minute brief, I've given you what's the crux in the book.
Thank you, sir. And ladies and gentlemen, can I just rewind and actually share with you my takeaway? The first takeaway that I get out of this conversation is that maybe leading from the front may not be the recipe for success. The recipe for success would not be leading from the front, but I think it may just be the other thing, you should lead from the back. If you lead from the back, you would then ask, will it produce result? And the answer is sitting right in front of you. The gentleman who's authored this structure has actually followed this in various companies that he has worked. Whether it was Titan, which is a part of our life, whether it is Philips Consumer Division, whether it is Hawkins and Tata Motors. In all of them, he has practiced the tenets that he has laid out. So to take away, think very seriously the way in which you practice leadership. And the recommendation that is coming is, instead of leading from the front, try and lead from the back. If you lead from the back, there are 3 things that you got to focus on. One is you. The change begins with you. And what you got to do to change yourself is written right here, and we will get into the depth. Have an open mind, have a sense of ownership, and be detached. After you've worked on yourself, then go to the next part, which is about the team. The biggest thing, and that I will just talk about, is build trust in your team, right? Leverage strength, etc. And then the last part, once you've worked on yourself, you worked on the team, then you have to take impossible targets to achieve it. Now, this is what the structure is, what you need to take away. Now, what I would do is, I would take Mr. Ravi Kant's help to decode each and every in the 3 frameworks, what are the 3 things that he has mentioned in each framework, if he could build upon it. So let's start. If you see here, how should I be? Sir, you have worked in all these companies that I just mentioned. It's Philips, it's Titan, it's Tata Motors. In all of it, you followed this style of leading from the back. And when you, from an engineer's mind, looked at it, you have drawn up this framework. And in each of those 3 columns, you've got 3 subsets. So for all of us to understand what you mean, can we start with the first thing, how should I be? Open mind. Could you illustrate open mind with an example from your life and career?
Well, there are many, but I'll pick one which is related to our taking over Daewoo Truck Company in South Korea. You know, Korea is a very nationalistic country. They don't speak English, they speak only Koreans. And this Daewoo Truck Company was being sold by the banks. And there were 10 bidders to buy it. We were one of them. And then most of the bidders were from Europe and some Chinese and one Korean, I think. So I was standing in, one English-speaking guy was assigned to us, mid-level manager. So I was standing with him in the ante-room of the president. And I thought, let me ask him, as we are doing due diligence, trying to find out how good they are, how good the company is, let me find out what is their opinion of the 10 bidders. What do they think? Because that will also matter a lot, because at the end of the day, these are the guys who are going to be running the business. And therefore, I thought, why don't we flip this? So I asked this person, I said, who would you like to go with? He was very hesitant because he didn't know how it will be taken. So I said, I reassured him. I said, be absolutely honest. I'm here to just understand what your feeling is. So he said, we would like to go with a European company. So I asked him, why? He said, because, sir, we'll get technology and our future will be assured. Now see, if we had a closed mind, first of all, we wouldn't have even asked the question. And number two, being Tata Motors means it is at the high pedestal. And what is this guy telling me that he wants to go with Europe? He doesn't know who I am. We could have taken that stand. But we appreciated what he said with an open mind. And we changed the whole strategy. I can tell you just on this conversation, 1 minute conversation, we changed the whole strategy. As the whole template became to become a South Korean company, South Korea, not an Indian company, South Korea. It changed the whole template. Normally what people do when you go for takeover, you create your own identity, you obliterate the identity of the company you are taking over. That's the Western model, that's the American model. In 100 days, if I'm red and you are blue, then you should all become red, period. So we said no. We want to be seen here as a South Korean company in South Korea, as indeed we are seen in Tatas in India. That changed the whole philosophy. We did a number of things, and of course, I won't go into detail. At the end of due diligence, when the team was coming after maybe 3 or 4 weeks, these guys, managers, came to the team and they said, they became very emotional. Koreans are not so emotional generally. They became very emotional and they said, if our company has to go to anybody, it must go to Tata's. 180-degree change. What changed was not technology. What changed was how we listened to them, how we adapted, how we changed our whole philosophy of doing things, explained to them, and they felt their career, this thing will be, I would say, progressed and be protected if they were to join with Tata's. And that's, of course, finally we were able to. So all I'm saying is, small things, look for small things. Small things have the power to change. But only if you keep an open mind, you will be able to take them in. If you have closed mind, you won't even take them in. And of course, as we have said, so many things are changing. If you don't have an open mind, you won't know what the hell is happening outside the room. I mean, the weather can change tomorrow, but you don't know because you are enclosed in a room. So please keep this, as I said, more traditional industries, manufacturing industries especially, and legacy companies have a very, very close mind. And therefore, I think it's time you begin to open your minds and begin to see what changes are taking place. How can I become excellent? How can I go forward? I'm sure you will be doing a number of things, but you can do them much better if you were to exercise open-minded with much greater ethos.
Thank you, sir. And let me just see, he gave you a perspective, and I am taking the prescription for myself, and I'm speaking also, so to speak, sharing my perspective with you, what I learned. The first thing is that you need to have an open mind. And why am I saying open mind and stressing on it? All of you are from manufacturing. Number two, all of you are successful. And what Mr. Ravi Kant sir said is, the more successful you become, research indicates you become closed-minded. You start feeling, I know everything. So this is the first thing I think that you should note down, have an open mind. Second thing, if you see, one middle-level person in Korea who he encouraged to answer a question, first he posed a question to him, and after that he asked him to answer it honestly, and he listened to it, and he acted on that response. What is the lesson for us? There are many people in our organization who will be at mid-level, much lower to us. Many of the wisdom, as Dr. Khandelwal was saying, authority resides on the top, wisdom resides at the bottom of an organization. Do tap into that wisdom. And number three, when you have an open mind, you ask the right question, you tap into that wisdom, when you listen to it, do convert that into actionable data, and the kind of success you will see is what happened when Sir did it for Daewoo Motors. Let's move, sir, thank you so much for this. Let's move to the second thing that is mentioned under I, and that is assume ownership. Would you take an example, an illustration from your career to build upon assume ownership, and how did it deliver results?
Yeah, okay, before that, let me come and share with you. You would all be knowing, there are many big companies have been wiped out. If you go for the last 50, 60, 70 years, see big companies which are not there. How did they get obliterated? What happened to them? Why did it happen? If you were to go deep into it, then you will understand. One of the key factors was because they had closed mind. Because they had closed mind, these organizations, they did not see how the trend was changing. And by the time they thought about it, it was just too late. It was just too late. And they finished. Many, many big organizations. So I don't have to, both in India and worldwide. So you can refer to many books and many kind of this thing, go to the net and find out. Say, 50 years ago, which organization, how many organizations were there in top 10? Today, how many organizations? You'll find that the names are totally different. And then you go into details and understand why did they get wiped out? The main reason you will get is because they had closed mind. They were not able to appreciate what changes would. Yes, please understand. I mean, it's to be understand that when I'm in a thing, I've got legacy. I've made my investments in the legacy. It's very difficult, mind you, it's not easy. It's very difficult to change. Very, very difficult, because you've made investments in your machines and plants and things like that. But the fact is, if you don't change fast, somebody will come and wipe you out. And that is something in any industry you take, that's what is happening. And now it's happening at a much faster rate. So please be careful about that. You might be busy doing the machine, but you may find that the whole industry is getting wiped out, so forget about your machine at that point in time. Now coming to ownership, I'll take both ownership and detached in the same thing, if I may. So I was working at Titan Watches. I was the first set of sales and marketing. And I was enjoying my job, everything was good, but I had some personal challenges, and for which I needed to relocate to Delhi from Bangalore. And as luck would have it, somebody offered me a job at LML Vespa, which is factories in Kanpur, but this job was, because it was head of as marketing director, it was at Delhi. So I accepted it. So I accepted it to shift to Delhi, not to join LML Vespa. So I just want to make that distinction. And I thought that, okay, I'll be here for a couple of years and then I'll find my way out somewhere else. I was advised very much against it, but when I joined the company, because I had my own priorities, I joined the company. I found it was in very bad shape and it was going downhill, it was making losses, and it would have got liquidated. So what do we do? Of course, number of things had to be done, but they didn't have money, you couldn't make huge investments and things like that. So we thought, well, let's take a bigger purpose. Because if we say, nahi, abhi change karna hai, we have to do turnaround and all that kind of thing, usual thing, it may be difficult. So one thing that we came up with, what would happen if the company got liquidated? What would happen if a company gets liquidated? The workers will be on the road, is it not? And when workers on the road, then their families will go hungry. So I told my colleagues in sales and marketing that we need to take care of 20,000 mouths to feed. They should not go hungry. So somebody asked me, why are you saying 20,000? There are only 5,000. So when I told them about the families, they understood immediately. That became the mission. That became the mission that forget about everything else. We cannot let this happen. And that can only happen when you assume that you have taken ownership. We were not the financial owners. And we were not doing it because we would get double promotions or get lakhs and crores of rupees. We had won this single thing in our mission. We cannot let this 20,000 people go hungry, period. And that's what drove everybody. Day in and day out and day in. This is called taking ownership. So if you, whatever job you're doing, whichever company you're doing, if you begin to think it is mine, then you bring a different, very different perspective to your job or to the company. Very different. And each company, has positives and negatives. And we can't be just looking at the negatives. We need to look at positives also. And but sake, I have to take ownership. It becomes very different perspective. That's one. And I said, be detached. While we were doing this, as I mentioned to you, we were not doing because we'll get crores of rupees after that. We won't get at least. Or that we'll get double promotions or things like that. And I knew, as I've told you, I knew that my perspective was that I'll leave, be in the company for a couple of years and then leave. In spite of that, we did this. And this is therefore, of course, the final results were that company which was making, that time used to be a big loss, 40 crore loss. In 3 years' time, it started making 40 crore profit. It had a market share of 9%. You are manufacturing people, but I hope you understand market shares, which is what gives you the job to manufacture. The market share was 9%, and there was a huge, big, dominant player called Bajaj at that point in time, scooters. And the reputation of Bajaj was that if you bought a Bajaj, 5 years later, you could sell the Bajaj, same scooter at more the price you bought 5 years later. And there was a huge wait list. Against this kind of scenario, LML Vespa increased its market share from 9% to 32%. 9% to 32% in 4 years' time. So that is the kind of thing it did. And I said, by taking ownership and being detached, both things together. There are many, many examples I can give, but I thought one would be enough here.
Sir, thank you for this. And ladies and gentlemen, I think you can correlate what Ravi Kant sir said to yesterday evening and today morning as well. If you looked at Dr. Pillai, he had a higher purpose, right? Why And because he had a higher purpose, look where today, when Operation Sindoor happened, what is the state of our country? We are a winner only because he had a higher purpose. You also heard Dr. Anil Khandelwal mentioning that he had a higher purpose of turning around Bank of Baroda. What is the lesson for us? Whatever job we do, we may not be the financial owners, but we need to have a higher purpose. And the moment we have higher purpose, we will have a sense of ownership. And whenever we work with the ownership, we will not work for the job, we will not work for our career, we will come and work for the work itself. And when we start working for the work itself, then I think the quality of work will be much different, and then you will achieve the results that LML Vespa achieved with this kind of a thinking. From 9% against a formidable competitor, you get 32% market share. And what was the higher lesson? It is not to increase market share, that is a byproduct. The bigger lesson is that we cannot allow 20,000 mouths to go hungry. हम लोग 20,000 लोगों को भूखा नहीं रख सकते हैं, या 5,000 वर्कर्स को सड़क पे नहीं आते देख सकते हैं. This is the kind of thinking you need to have. And the second point of being detached. Being detached is very, very important. Most of us, and that is quite natural to all of us, that we work for we are attached to our job because it will give us career, it will give us this. But the point is, the moment you work for money, career, progression, then the quality of work suffers and you have a lot of anxiety. But if you follow this concept कि हमारे हाथ में काम करना है, result किसी और को देना है, when we work with that kind of a perspective and when we are detached from the outcome, then the quality of our work increases significantly. So we've covered the first part, the change that you have to bring about. So the first thing is, in your mind, reflect whether you want to lead from the front or from the back. That decision is yours. If you say that I want to lead from the back because I have seen results here, then the three things that you have to do is have an open mind, assume ownership, and be detached. So let's move to the second thing. From I, let's move to the team. How do you build powerful teams, sir?
You know, I have worked in 7 companies, each in a different industry. With some stroke of luck, I got these jobs. I can only say that. But once I was in the organization, then what do? Because people in the organization is far more kind of technically competent than me. They are far more knowledgeable than me. I mean, whether it was Philips or LML Vespa or even let's take Tata Motors, I had no experience of four-wheelers, whether commercial vehicles or passenger cars. What do? Because people in the company have years of experience and knowledge, which is important. Incidentally, I'm not decrying that, is very important. But I'm now in that environment, what do? So everywhere, what I did was, because of the shortcomings I had in myself of not being so technically competent, I said, let us create powerful teams. If you create powerful teams, and which I had learned in my previous organization, you can do impossible things. That was the key point. How to create powerful teams. Now, how do you create powerful teams? Because nobody is going to respect you, because you don't come with any experience. As you know, in manufacturing is a very traditional outlook. If he doesn't have experience, I don't care for this guy. That's what happens. So what you do is, therefore, you start creating trust. The fundamental thing of creating powerful teams is creating trust. How do you create trust? So when I went to each of these companies, I went alone. I could have taken my old confidence from the previous companies. Okay, he's my guy, he understands me, loyal aadmi hai hamara. But I went alone. Because had I gone with these people, what is the signal I'm giving to the organization? That I don't trust you. That's why I've got my trusted people. And therefore, you start by trusting everybody. But you must know that the trust doesn't get reciprocated immediately. And just by saying people, you trust me, people won't trust you. And therefore, through your behavior, and I call trust is consistent integrity. Integrity means honesty, truthfulness, transparency, kind of fair, playing fair with people, treating people equally, like this, or being authentic. Not one day, not 1 week, not 1 month, every hour. And that is the tough part. You can be good for a week, you can be good for a month. But to create as a DNA of yours is important. In fact, it must become such that you become predictable. If somebody comes with a problem, everybody in the organization should know this is going to be the answer. Because if somebody had, other person had come with the same problem, that would have been the answer. Once you begin to do that, this predictability, then you begin to gain trust from the organization, from people, individuals, slowly and slowly and slowly. When people begin to realize that, look, he does not have any personal agenda. He is not doing it for something to gain traction. He is doing it for the organization. And if organization succeeds, we'll succeed. So slowly and slowly, you start gathering people, you create a critical mass of people who start believing, and start coming to you, and start doing things. And they begin to feel a part of it in a different sort of way. Still, there'll be people who will not kind of trust you, or they will, at your back, they will laugh at you. And they'll be criticized, oh, usko मालूम नहीं, usko क्या मालूम है? हम यहाँ 25 साल से हैं, हम जानते हैं. But slowly and slowly things begin to change. And then they begin to change, then the bigger collaboration comes into thing. They start collaborating with each other. And as you know, especially in manufacturing organizations, I don't want to say there are silos everywhere. वो एक प्लांट ही है, दूसरा प्लांट है, वो मालूम नहीं क्या, उसी प्लांट में different departments, silos, everywhere. So what I'm saying is not kind of unknown to you. You are part of that. So if we were to remove all these walls, can you imagine what kind of energy you can get? What kind of energy? So if somebody asked me what was my contribution if we did not have any experience in four-wheelers, I said my experience, my contribution was to break these walls and make people collaborate, make people trust each other. And then if you do that, magic starts happening. Then magic starts happening. And things begin to happen by itself. And I said in that, one thing is important is, look at people's strengths, because we are normally say कि उसमें बुराई क्या है? बुराई ठीक है, उसको देख के रखिए, but kind of you don't do things by looking at burai. Look at person's strength. Then place the person in that position. And the collaboration in an environment of trust, I tell you, you can do anything. You can climb the Everest, you can move mountains, you can do whatever. And as some of this Rajesh has mentioned, happened because of powerful teams. I didn't do anything. And somebody says it happened. No, I did not do it. Please understand. It happened during my time. That's the only credit I can take. It happened during my time, but I did not do it. It's the same people in LML Vespa I talked about, same people who were being castigated for making losses. It's the same people who turned in the profit. Tata Motors, first year I joined, I was greeted by a loss of 500 crores, the first loss in Tata Motors history, and the biggest loss in corporate history till that point in India of any company. Same people 2 years later turned in a 500 crore profit. The same people. So you must have faith in people. And if you begin to trust things, then things begin to happen in a much better fashion. That's all I can say. So if you were to ask me one central point of today's conversation, it is to create powerful teams. And the crux of that powerful team is to start creating trust. It seems very kind of simple, but it's not so simple. And in the today's world where trust is at a total this kind of premium, or mistrust and distrust is hovering everywhere around, including information space, as you know. You don't know what is fake, what is real. So trust, in my view, in today's time, in 21st century, is the most valuable commodity the world has. And therefore, if you are able to create trust, you can go against the grain. You can go against the grain, and you can do many things which people may feel was not possible earlier.
Thank you, sir, for this. And what is the perspective that he gave, and what is the prescription? The perspective that he gave is that if there is one thing that you must take away today, is that your job is to build teams, and build teams that are powerful. And once you build those teams that are powerful, they will achieve impossible results. And the key to building powerful teams is trust. Initially, when you start asking, you cannot ask for trust, right? It has to be earned. The position does not give you trust, it has to be earned. The moment you earn trust, that is the starting point of building powerful teams. And then when they collaborate among each other and you leverage their strength, impossible result is achieved. And two key takeaway. As a leader, break the silos and break the walls. And once you break the silo and break the walls, can you imagine metaphorically how much energy will get released? Once that energy is released and people trust each other and they collaborate with each other, do you know what collaboration will do? It will get you impossible results. And not just collaborate, when you leverage and climb on each other's shoulder, and there is a trust among each other, and you're climbing on each other's shoulder and collaborating, you cannot assume, you cannot just know what results you're going to achieve. So we've covered two things, three concepts. The overall arcing concept is lead from the back. And I just want to share this. It's a very important perspective. Here is a person, we all respect, admire, and we are hearing because of the things that and I'm again using the word, the way the world sees it, he has achieved. But what is he saying? I have achieved nothing. I did not do anything. I just happened to be in that company when those transformation happened and when those wonderful products were created. I just happened to be there. That is the sign of a leader. And that is when we start giving the spotlight to others, our team members, that is when we truly transform into a leader. Yesterday, you would have heard Dr. Pillai. And sir, I just wish to narrate this story. It is again written in this book. And that was told live by the person who experienced it. Sir, just to refresh, ladies and gentlemen, your mind. What happened when the first time ISRO faced a failure? Dr. Abdul Kalam was on the driver's seat. When the rocket did not take off, Professor Satish Dhawan, what did he do? He said, you people discover the cause of failure while I go and face the press. And to the press he said, yes, we have failed, but we will come back stronger next time. Next year, when the whole product was, when the rocket was launched and it succeeded, what did Professor Dhawan say? Go and talk to the press now. That is the leadership. And what did Dr. Pillai say yesterday? That ISRO is what it is because of this culture that was instituted by Professor Satish Dhawan and Vikram Sarabhaiji. And that is again the concept that he's talking about. So one thing that we got to be very clear is that we need to build teams, and we should, success when it comes, we should allow the spotlight to be on them. Let's move to the third part. The third part is about transforming yourself, creating a team, and then coming out with a task. So in this, there are two things that you have mentioned. One of the things that is mentioned there is test the limit, look outside in. How would you, from your example, share these two concepts so that rest of us can understand it?
Well, I just now gave you example of LML Vespa, is how transformative change is, because we had taken this mission and it happened like that. Philips also, we increased sales by 10 times in 10 months. 10 times in 10 months. At Tata Motors, I talked about minus 500 crores to plus 500 crores. In 15 years that I was at Tata Motors, company's turnover was $1.6 billion. It so happened. And it so happened when I left, the company's turnover was $39 billion. $39 billion का मतलब कोई माने होता, even by world standards. How did it happen? Many, many big things were done. Same people were there. It's not that we increased, we caught talent in hordes from outside. Same people. Yes, one or two other persons were inducted. So Jaguar Land Rover is one, but I think with this audience, I would like to narrate the story of Nano. So when Mr. Tata gave in Geneva in an interview with press that he had seen these whole families traveling on two-wheelers in rainy season and all that, and therefore he would like to offer a four-wheeler, a protective car, a safe car for mode of transportation. So somebody said, what do you think would be the price? So he said, it is between this and two-wheeler. So it came to 1 lakh at that point in time. And that stuck. So everywhere in media they said, it's 1 lakh. Fast forward 7 years later, the car actually comes into being. In 7 years, as you know, things have changed dramatically. And two things change here. Number one, the concept of the car that he had in mind was a kind of an off-roader type of very basic, simple thing. But the car which actually became Nano met all the norms, all the kind of safety norms, all the other norms, very comfortable, good looking, everything. It ticked all the boxes. And second thing which happened is in 7 years, the commodity prices they shot through the roof. So it was very tough, very tough. So these two things bear in mind what I'm going to say now. So whether it was 7 years earlier or 7 years later, nobody knew that a car in 1 lakh can be produced. Nobody knew. And nobody believed. Because it was a figment of imagination. But that figment of imagination was rooted in something. Please understand, it was not just को बोलते हवा में बात नहीं थी, कुछ सम था उसमें था. So what did the organization do? It's an impossible task, you'll all agree, creating a car in 1 lakh rupees even at that point in time. So what would you do? You talk to your vendors, you talk to your engineers, and everybody feels it's an impossible task. So what did the organization do? Organization took a white sheet of paper and said, okay, the price of the car is so much, and therefore BOM, bill of material, should be about, they say, assume 70,000 rupees. If it is 70,000, what could be the cost of component? If there was an imaginary car, what should be the cost of the various things in the car? Whether it's tires or sheet metal or painting or battery or other things. So you come to that some kind of a rough figure. Then you talk to your people, everybody gets into things. That's when the ownership comes. Everybody starts owning it. First, there is a dismay. It's not possible. They say, no, we have to make it possible. Then you talk to your vendor group. Vendors say, and many multinational vendors. And they say, no, it's not possible. And because Tata Motors was already a big player, and therefore it could also, जिसको बोलते हैं साम दाम दंडवैत vendors के साथ. I'm a big buyer, and therefore you better look at it seriously. And people went back to the drawing board, those multinational companies also, and all the vendors, and our engineers inside. And I tell you, they did a phenomenal thing. Collectively taking ownership and yet be detached, because it was not for them, but they wanted to be part of it. I remember even a steel supplier in Japan. Normally I wouldn't go into this thing, purchase things and all that. But couple of things I got involved. One of them was this. We were able to change their minds to this. And therefore we said, so I'm telling you, the task here was what? 1 lakh car. Outside in approach. Means from there we come to here. And when you come to here, then you will find that it's not possible. That's when you are forced to look into innovation. That's when you're forced to look out of box. That's where you're forced to go to the net. That's where you start talking to other people. Bhai, kaise karna hai? तुमने को सोचा. That's when you start looking at papers. कि इसमें कैसे किया है? इसमें कैसे किया है? You discover and discover and discover and discover, and you find, oh my God, somebody has done this, somebody has done this, can I build on this, can I ideas start getting into you. So out of box thinking, it forces you to do out of box thinking. It forces you to become innovative. And that is the big advantage of that. And finally, of course, be tough softly. I think I've explained that earlier, so I won't do it now. So this is very important, because once you have made a powerful team, then that team is going for big task. And that big task, how to make it happen? You look outside in. And you find in normal course, it cannot be done. And therefore, you are forced to look out of box. You are forced to have innovation. You are forced to have this, and then make this happen. And this is a story which must be close to you people, but similar kind of thing happened. And of course, in Nano, number of other things happened. As you know, because you are manufacturing people, I'm narrating this. We had problems in West Bengal. The factory had been built. Trial production is being taken. And Mr. Tata, after meeting the Chief Minister, takes the final decision at that point in time. No, we cannot. Safety of our engineers and managers is paramount. We cannot allow that to be sacrificed. And therefore, we are taking a decision to move away from Singur. And move to Gujarat, 1,300 kilometers away, later on. But Mr. Tata had promised that car will come. Now, how do you reconcile all these things? Please apply your mind to this. And I think what the team did was remarkable. I don't think it has been done anywhere in the country, anywhere in the world, in any industry. The factory in West Bengal is being dismantled, nut by nut, board by board, packaged, 1,400 containers being carted away. While this is being done, you are building another factory at Sanand, which you built and start putting the machines and all. That took about 12, 13 months. So one side you are dismantling a factory, other side you are putting up a factory. And there is a gap of 15 months while both these things are happening. But still, because Mr. Tata had promised you need to give a car. So we had an ACE factory in Uttarakhand. You know, commercial factory cannot produce cars. You all know that. But then we gave the challenge to our engineers and managers. No, we have to carve out a portion in Uttarakhand. However small it is, we will start making nano in Uttarakhand. So please understand, in a span of 1.5 years, 3 things are happening together simultaneously. A factory is being dismantled, another factory 1,300 kilometers is being built, and a third place is giving us. Can you imagine the complication you people would understand? Because our whole vendors were there in West Bengal. Now you're telling them कि भैया वहाँ से उखाड़ो, अब गुजरात में जाओ. And while you're doing this, put something in Uttarakhand. Can you imagine talking to vendor like this? Who will do it? But they all took the ownership. They all came together. Everything happened. And finally, as you know, that we were able to do. So this is a very remarkable thing which has happened, which normally it doesn't get talked about, but I think it is absolutely phenomenal, both the development of the car and the changing of the factories. Thank you.
So I take this applause for the following conclusion and I draw out before we end this session. The first is that you will today, this moment, start reflecting on one fact. Are you leading from the front? And if you are, is that the strategy that you wish to continue with? And here you have an alternative. Can you or should you decide to lead from the back? That's the first perspective that you got to take a call on. Should you decide to lead on the back, there are 3 things that you got to work upon. First is you. And when you work on yourself, have 3 concepts. Have an open mind, assume ownership, be detached. Once you worked on yourself, then second thing, and that's the most powerful and the most critical thing is, you can't do it alone. You have to build powerful teams. Once you build powerful teams using trust, collaboration, leveraging strength, then the team is ready. To this team, you have to give an impossible task. Test their limit, like it was done in the case of Nano. When you give them a challenge, and they use this concept of outside-in thinking, and sir, I had taken the liberty of sharing this concept yesterday as well, you can achieve impossible results. So this is the prescription that you have with you. Please try and follow this. Let me conclude by saying, you may have this perspective, sir is extraordinary, he may lead from the back, and for him, in his case, maybe with luck, maybe he had Mr. Ratan Tata as his boss, or something else, he succeeded. Can we, as ordinary companies, succeed? And here, I wish to take a personal example with you. I have been associated with sir for the last 6 months. About a fortnight back, we were traveling, we went to Chennai to visit a company. And the company is in Chennai called MTNT. When we entered the conference room of this company, MTNT, what do you think we saw? On their wall was the 3 pillars and the merchandising of each of these 3 pillars. We looked at the chairman of this company, a gentleman called, who's standing right there on the extreme side, Mr. Rakesh Modi. We asked him, Rakesh ji, aapne kyon kiya? Why did you put this on the wall? He says, about a year back, he had come across this book. Somebody had presented this book leading from the back to him. He said, I read the book resonated with me, and I started following the tenets which we have looked at. And once we started following the tenets, results have started coming in. And when we met him a fortnight back, what he says is that we believe so much in this tenet, in this framework, that now we have taken a task of growing the company from 500 crores to 5,000 crores in 5 years. 500 crores to 5,000 crores in 5 years. That is the magic of this framework. You will say, okay, it's a mid-sized company. Can it work? Does it have a universal appeal? Let me give you a second example. Anyone from eastern part of the country would be aware that there is a social organization, an eye hospital called Acclaimed. It is about an 1-hour drive from Patna. It is located in the Dehat of Bihar. If you go to that hospital, it's just like any other western part of the world, right? What they have done is, they have achieved spectacular result because the gentleman who set up that Akhand Jyoti hospital, a gentleman called Mrityunjay Tiwari ji, he also got introduced to this framework and he is also applying it. And you know what? Applying this principle, he has now become the best eye hospital in the eastern part of the country, and he has taken a higher purpose. You remember the higher purpose in LML Vespa? To make sure कि 20,000 log bhuke na soएं. Akhand Jyoti has taken upon itself a mission कि we will make Bihar blind free. And it is with this higher purpose they are working to achieve this impossible result. And what is the backbone on which they have this confidence is this framework. So ladies and gentlemen, before I hand over the floor for question, I just want to say the following. Please reflect on this, and let me just close this anecdote. Let me close this session before we go for question by this small anecdote. You heard all this. It's very commonsensical, open mind, sense of ownership, be detached, trust, all that, leverage, strength, collaborate. You have heard it day in and day out. And here is an anecdote. Once, Mr. Rakesh Jhunjhunwala, who is no longer with us, he was being interviewed on a business channel. The young lady who was sitting opposite him said, "Sir, it is too good an opportunity for me to let you go without getting a tip out of you how to make money on the stock market. I will not let you go till you give me a tip on how to make money in the stock market." When the lady kept on insisting, that Rakesh Jhunjhunwala very clearly said, he says, "Lady, I can give you a tip on how to make money, but you can never make money on borrowed knowledge. I can give you a tip on how to make money, but you can never make money on borrowed knowledge." What is the lesson for you? This looks very simple, but this is his knowledge, his experience, his wisdom. But if you have to benefit out of it, then you have to make this knowledge, this wisdom, this framework your own. And then you can achieve impossible result. So please keep this in mind. It sounds simple, but unless you internalize it, you can't benefit. And with this, ladies and gentlemen, is there any question? Sir?
Rajesh ji, I don't think we have the time to take questions, so we'll have to close it here. Sorry.
Thank you so much for your patience.
Thank you so much, gentlemen. Thank you, Mr. Ravi Kant, for sharing.